Hello everyone. On today's commentary, we're going to dive into 2 Kings chapter 12. And this chapter showcases the reign of King Jehoash over Judah. I first like to say that Joash and Jehoash are simply variant spellings of the same name. When we read from the first verse to the third verse of the very chapter, we get to see that King Joash reigned for 40 years in Jerusalem, and this was a very long and mostly blessed reign. Now King Joash fell short of full commitment and complete godliness, but he did advance the cause of God in the kingdom of Judah. When we look at the very verses, we get to read that Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days of which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. This implies that when Jehoiada died, Joash no longer did what was right in the sight of the Lord. And it tells us that he turned to idolatry when Jehoiada died and judgment followed. So after the death of the godly high priest, Joash fell into the hands of godless advisors who turned his heart into Canaanite practices. As we go on, we get to see that the high places were not taken away. Now, this indicated that King Joash implemented a halfway reformation and not a total forming of Israel's worship. He did not take on the more difficult job of removing the high places. Now the people were so fondly and strangely addicted to high places that the foregoing kings, though men of riper years and great power and courage, and finally settled in their thrones, could not take them away, and therefore it is not strange if Jehoiada could not now remove them. Now when we look at verses 4 and 5, we get to see that King Joash makes a decree regarding the repair of this temple, or of the temple. Now, all money of the dedicated gifts was given into this temple. Now, there was a regular income coming into the temple from several different sources. And King Joash wanted to put that money towards a particular purpose. Now, this money was received in 3 different ways. The first one being each man's census money. Now, this was half the shekel of each Israelite older than the age of 20, and they had to pay it each and every year. The second one is getting to see each man's assessments money. Now, this means each man had to or gave this money according to their soul, according to how their heart felt. Now, this was a kind of property that was tax-based and on personal assessment of each individual. So they were given this money wholeheartedly. Now, all the money that a man purposes in his heart to bring into the house of the Lord was freely given offerings over and above the required donations. All these sources had been given in some measure open, but instead of repairing the dilapidations in the Lord's house, the priests and the Levites had converted the income into their own use. And King Joash, working through the priests, corrected this problem. Now, as we move on or reading from these verses, we get to see the starting of the repair of the damages of the temple. Now, it was natural for Joash to have a high regard for the condition of the temple because it was his home as a young boy. The temple needed restoration because it was vandalized by Athaliah and her sons. When we get to read from verse 16 to 13, we get to see that money is gathered for the rebuilding of the work. Now, by the 23rd year of King Joash, that the priests had not repaired the damages of the temple. When a project is being done, it takes quite some time, especially for a building. And renovating an old building is always most difficult and expensive than actually building a new one. Nevertheless, we get to see that King Joash had to wait a very long time until the damages of the temple were repaired, and the work was going far too slowly. Now, in what year King Joash gave the orders for these repairs, we cannot tell. But the account here plainly intimates that they had been long given and that nothing was done merely through the inactivity and negligence of the priest. Now a time came when the priest took a chest, bored a hole in its lid, and set it beside the altar. Now, under the direction of King Jehoash, the priest gave the people the opportunity to give. Even willing givers should be given an opportunity, or were given an opportunity. Then they placed a collection chest in a strategic location on the right side of the altar, giving the repair project a high priority and a corresponding high visibility. Now, later on, we see that as we read, therefore, do not take more money from your constituency, but deliver it for repairing the damages of the temple. King Jehoash got to the heart of the problem. The building project was plagued by poor administration and financial mismanagement. Through Jehoiada the priest, he implemented a system where the money would be set aside, saved, and then wisely spent for the repair and refurbishing of the temple. When the people were assured that the money would really be used for the purpose for which it was given, they responded generously, and so seemingly arrangements were continued by Josiah, who was a wise man. Now, so successful had been the king's program, and so well did all concerned carry out their duties, that there was even money left over for the provision of the sacred vessels of the sanctuary service. From verses 14 to 16, we see that the temple is repaired. Now, when we read, moreover, they did not require an account from the men into whose hand they delivered the money. Now, through good administration of that project, they were able to find men who could be trusted to use the money wisely and honestly. The project was previously stored not because of lack of money, but because of poor money management. Now, when we say it belonged to the priest, the point is made that the project succeeded without taking anything away from the priest. The temple was not repaired at their expense. They still received money from the trespass offerings and from the sin offerings. Now we get to also read later on from verses 17 to 18. It shows the decline of King Jehoash. Now, in verses 17 and 18, King Jehoash pays King Hazael of Syria tribute money to avoid an attack against Jerusalem. Then King Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. At this time, the kingdom of Syria attacked Judah with an inferior army, but God used them as an instrument of judgment against the disobedient Jehoash. King Jehoash was wounded in a battle outside of Jerusalem. When we read 2 Corinthians 24:23-24, it tells us of a story that so it happened in the spring of the year that the army of Syria came up against him, and they came to Judah and Jerusalem and destroyed all the leaders of the people from among the people and set all their spoil to the king of Damascus. For the army of Syrians came with a small company of men, but the Lord delivered a very great army into their hand, because they had forsaken the Lord, God of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Jehoash. Now we get to see that King Jehoash of Judah took all the sacred things and sent them to Hazael, king of Syria. Instead of trusting God, Jehoash traded prior blessings, the sacred treasures of the temple, to protect his capital and kingdom against the attacking of the Syrians. This was a very difficult time for this king because he was wounded with an attacking and successful army bearing down on Jerusalem. He found it very hard to trust God in this difficult place because he had stopped trusting God in easier circumstances long before. When we read from verses 19 to 21, we see the assassination of King Jehoash. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoash. There is no record of repentance on King Jehoash's part. He never came back to or fulfilled his bright early promise. Oh, how few of the few who begin to live to God continue until the end. Later on, we see that his servants arose and formed a conspiracy and killed King Jehoash. This is starting, actually, if you ask me, and shows that the blessing of God long before vanished from the compromised king who began so well but failed to finish well. Now, the murder of Jehoash by his officials or servants implies that it may have been the result of disaffection following the defeat of Hazael. Now, disobedience brings its own bitter reward, and what God's people sow, they always, in some way or another, reap. Jehoash abundantly deserved his inglorious and terrible end. Now, the end of his reign, full of promise and hope in the beginning, but cruel and ruinous in the end. Never was the hand of God's justice more signally stretched out against an apostate king and faithless people than this time. So, this is the end of the reign of King Jehoash. He was assassinated by his fellows. He was assassinated by his servants. And this just shows that he started so well, but ended up dying by assassination, just because he did not trust God completely. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something from the story of King Jehoash. Thank you for listening.